Okay. Thank you all for being here. We'll go through and just jump into this. I know we got a little bit to go into with our first training meeting, but I'll go ahead and call it to order at 5:02 p.m. on October 12th. Roll call and attendance. Nick Villa is here. Sandra Johnson is here. Jake Robinson is here. Let me make my ways down. Jared Osborne is here. Alice Williams is here. So in terms of committee members that are here, Spencer Winters, who's our new committee member, is absent, is excused at a time. And then for advisors, myself and Aaron and Maya are all here as well. So awesome. We have quorum. And again, if you have to go when we get close to the end, I know Jared did share, may not be able to talk towards the end and may have to hop off if we go, if there's another commitment. We're going to try and get through this well in advance, but we should be fine with quorum as we move into that. But I'm going to go ahead and move on to, hopefully you all should have gotten a chance to look over the agenda that was proposed. Again, this is our first training meeting, so you kind of see that's what's on there. But I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I will do so.
Motion from Jared. Is there a second?
I'll make a second.
Second from Alice. Any discussion? Great. All those in favor? You can click the little button or raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Long pause.
I'm trying to, there.
There we go, Alice. Okay, any opposed? I'm assuming Alice is not opposed. It's just slowly putting the hand down. And any abstaining? Great, motion passes. We'll go ahead and approve approval of the minutes from our last of our summer meetings on the 28th of September. Give you all a second to look over. Are there any edits or changes to the minutes you all noted? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I would like to make a motion to approve this week's minutes or last week's minutes.
Motion from Alice. Is there a second?
I'd like to second that.
Second from Xander. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, please indicate. 1, 2, 3. Any opposed? And any abstaining? Great, motion passes. With that, reports from advisors. I think the only one I'd give here first is just as a reminder, I'm excited to have you all joining. When that's the official, I know it wasn't that long ago, it was 2 weeks ago, we wrapped up our summer session. But this is the first official meeting of the school year. And so this week we'll do some training pieces similar to what several of you had earlier during the summer. We'll go a little bit in depth and skim over some others that you just covered. And then next week is also a training meeting. And that's where Aaron gets to come in and do all the fun, exciting budget pieces for us and show us all the numbers and stuff. I am waiting, just as a heads up, to hear back. There's one pending supplemental request that was submitted. It's for something that's at the end of this month. And so waiting to hear back from them on whether or not they still want to proceed or are pulling back on their request. If so, we may hear that at the end of next week's meeting after we've gone through the training pieces. But otherwise, excited to have us kicking off the start of the year. Anything from you, Aaron?
I am also super excited to be starting the year. It's a learning opportunity for me as well. I'm very glad that next week is my portion of the training and not this week. And I hope you guys are all having a great start of the quarter.
Thanks, Aaron. Any report from ACW?
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say some events that ACW is having, and one of our closest ones is Wellington Wildfire, which is going to be the 20th. If you guys would like to attend, we're going to have food, games, prizes, and we're also going to be hosting our WSA GA. So what that looks like is the Washington Student Association and all its members will be gathering here at Central and talking about our legislative proposals for this up and coming session. And October 27th, it will be our Halloween party here in the ACW office, 236. And I won't reveal what I'll be, but it's gonna be under the sea theme. But if you have to come to the office to see what I am for Halloween. And that is as far as I have for updates. Yeah, just committees as well. If you guys know anybody that would like to be on a committee or has interest, you can send them my way and I can give them a lot more details.
Thanks, Nick. And you may have just said this, so I apologize if I didn't catch it because you then caught me off guard of trying to figure out what your costume is going to be. Did you mention that when they come in that you all are doing a competition of your doors decorated for Halloween?
Yeah, so that'll be also part of a Halloween party. We're gonna have a competition of decorations. Each of us are gonna have the door, and some of us may have our office decorated as well. I think I'll be doing my office and the door, so it'll be a fun time.
So if you do come in, which you should, you get a vote on which office door deck you like the best.
We will also have snacks and hot chocolate.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Nick. Moving on to other business communications received. At this point, the only communication received, we did get official word back and approval from Senior VP Joel Clucking, who approved both of the supplemental requests that you all recommended at our last meeting. So those did get officially approved, and we received the notification back. So I wanted to report back to you all. Thank you all for that. There was no concerns or issues that Joel had, so moved forward, and now Aaron gets to work with ACW on both of those. With that, I'm going to go ahead and open it to first call for public comments. Is there any public comment? Awesome. For the sake of time, I'm going to keep moving on. So we're going to move into new business and training, and I'm just going to move through each of those all together in the presentation. So let me share my screen real quick, hypothetically, if I can do all of this on here. Okay, can you all see the PowerPoint? Okay, perfect. Feel free to chime in. I have you all on the side of the screen, but that does not necessarily mean I'm going to see if anyone posts a comment. So definitely jump in and just speak over me as it comes up. There's also going to be a couple activity points where you all are going to be asked to participate as well. So you're not just listening to me talk, just to give everyone forewarning on it. But so we're going to go through, and again, this is the first part of the training. For the sake of, again, I know we're recording, so Spencer can look at this, we can look at it for the minutes, but some of this is going to look similar to what we went over last, over a little over a month ago, if I remember correctly, for our summer training. Those slides that are similar, I'm going to go kind of quickly over since all of you were at that training. And if you have questions, I'll kind of touch on that. But otherwise, I'll spend a little bit more time on the slides we didn't get to or spend time on. So with that, getting to each other, we've already done this, but I did add 2 new questions since we have had 2 meetings already with this group. But I'm going to have us go around and we'll kind of popcorn to get to know each other just briefly on here, but just brief introduction. So name, position or major, what year at CWU. And then the last one is what brought you to CWU? Again, succinctly, don't want to, some of us can be a little bit more lengthy in our answers, but succinctly, what brought you to Central? And how did you get interested or involved in S&A? I think that's one that each of us has a little bit of different on that. So I will start, and then I'll kind of pick in the popcorn sense. So Joey Bryant, he, him, pronouns, work in our, I almost said Dean of Students office, Vice President for Student Engagement and Success, as the names have changed, advisor for you all. Director for Student Rights Responsibilities, Advisor for ASCWU, and Student Senate. I think those are most of the positions I have. Major was very long ago. I have been at Central for a while. I was an undergrad, and now I've worked here 16 years, and this is my 11th year advising S&A, I realized this evening. So 11th committee I've gotten the chance to work with, so excited for that. Brought me to CWU again as an undergrad. I came here actually for my degree was in education, so secondary education, social studies. And so I know me and Xander have talked about that before. I came here because, again, the program we had was from the state, was able to afford it, but I intentionally picked Central, but I also picked Central because I applied to Central early on, and they immediately replied back and accepted me. And so I was like, well, don't want to waste my money applying to other places at this point. So came to Central and haven't left at this point, other than briefly. And I'm going to be honest with you all, as a student, I had no idea S&A existed. Had never heard of it, never knew anything about it. Even when I first started working back at Central, I knew nothing about it until I started working in the vice president's office and worked closely with my predecessor, who was the advisor. Otherwise, had no idea that this was a thing. And then I ended up getting involved in interest in S&A because he retired and I got gifted those job responsibilities and learned all about S&A. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pop it over to Jared to pop in.
All right. Well, I got here in 2019 as a transfer from Highline, which has now been retroactively turned to, CWU Des Moines, which is weird for me because it's like CWU is stalking me. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can. I don't know if you can see. You got multiple thumbs up. So, yep, we can hear you.
I wasn't on the view with everybody, so.
Yep.
Okay, great. So I blame a former member of the S&A committee for my involvement here, which is Judy Brewer. She roped Alice in, and Alice roped me in. So that's how I'm here. And currently, I'm a master's student in computer science. It's my first quarter doing that, and I'm also the graduate TA for the department. So busy, busy, busy. And that's pretty much it.
You get to pick who goes next, Jared.
Well, since I kind of threw Alice under the bus and took her thunder by telling her, or, by saying how she got here and how I got here, I guess I'll pick Alice.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Sorry, I just got home. My name's Alice Williams. I'm in my senior year of a double major, computer science and applied mathematics, and I'm a research assistant. I moved here from Dallas, Texas, because COVID made the job market very difficult as a former programmer. And then I worked with Judy Brewer as a political canvasser, and so she told me about S&A, and so I hopped on the committee then. And so I will throw it over to Xander.
Hi, my name's Xander. I go by he, him pronouns. What are the other things? Not political position. I work as a leadership programmer out of the Slice office, and I'm double majoring in history, social studies, ed, and secondary education. What brought me to Central? To be honest with you, I followed some ex-friends to Central and stayed for the education program. And then S&A, my former director, Amber Hofer, was like, hey, I think you'd have fun with this. And I was like, okay, sounds great. And here I am. And then okay, I was unmuted. That would be really awkward if I was muted that entire time. Next, I want to hear from Nick.
Hello, everyone. Nicholas Villa, I go by Nick. Position, Vice President in the Student Government Office. Currently in my 4th year majoring in the ITM degree, specializing in cybersecurity. This is going on my 3rd year at CWU. And kind of what brought me to CWU is I had some brothers go here as well. And then I was thinking about Eastern as well, and it was a competition between the two. And then I saw the ITAM program. And I'm like, you know what? That doesn't have any math, but I want to go into the technology field. So I was like, nice, this is gonna work out for me. And so that's why I'm here at CWU. And how I got interested in S&A, I did not know of it previously to getting my position in vice president. And so I was kind of doing some research in the spring quarter, like, and attending meetings like, okay, what is this? And that's kind of how I got interested in it, became vice president within student government, and I am now attending S&A. And I will pass it off to Erin.
Hello, everybody. I'm Erin Sargent. I am currently the Student Funds Financial Manager and financial advisor to you all. That's my position. I also studied at Central, and I double majored in accounting and business administration with a specialization in human resource management. I originally started at Central at the same time I started taking classes as the secretary senior in the physics department, which was interesting because I knew nothing and still know nothing about physics, but that was how I ended up at CWU, was as an employee. And then I was really motivated by working with the students here, and they sort of, our physics students sort of encouraged me to go on and give it a try. And so that was how I ended up attending. And as far as S&A, I really was fortunate enough to be chosen to be in the position of the Student Funds Financial Manager. And matter of fact, I really didn't know anything about the S&A committee until in depth until May, when I started in this job, and a little bit of hearing about things from the previous financial manager in this area. And so it's sort of a new experience for me to get to learn about all of the rules and regulations, and it's kind of I guess an honor to be one of the people who make sure that the money is and the funds are spent in a way that is what's best for the students. And so I feel very good about being able to support everybody in that capacity. And I believe I will turn it over to Jake.
Hi guys, my name is Jake Robinson. My pronouns are he, him. And this is my senior year at Central with pursuing a major in computer science. And what brought me into the to CWU was I didn't want to be too far away from my parents, since I grew up in Washington, over in the Seattle area. But I also wanted to be far enough away that they wouldn't bother me all the time. And like Joey, I didn't really know much. I didn't even really know that the S&A committee existed until Alice had talked about it, and I joined, I think, one or two of the public meetings, and then got the opportunity to join as an ad hoc member over the summer, and that is why I'm here now. And I think that I will pop it over to Mia.
Hi guys, my name is Mia, and I am the Secretary Supervisor of the Office of Student Engagement and Success. I was a grad in, I just graduated in the spring, and I was studying economics and public policy with Douglas Honors. And so I guess you could say this is my 5th year at Central. And I was mainly interested in Central. Well, I was looking at a bunch of different schools, and I don't know what it was. I came to campus on one of the preview days in spring, and there was no wind. It was beautiful. I remember looking on campus and thinking, yeah, I could see myself here. I just fell in love. It just felt right. And I don't regret that choice ever. But I honestly, as a student, I didn't know about the S&A committee either. I didn't know that this was a thing until I came into this position, but I'm glad to learn more and more about it. As I learn more and more about it, I'm finding more and more people asking me questions about it, which is awesome. And just happy to be here. And is that everyone?
Yeah, I think that is everyone.
Okay, well, I'm gonna popcorn it back to you, Joey.
Thank you, Mia. Definitely and excited to have you all here. Really appreciate it. As you can all tell, S&A is kind of an unknown, as most of you all alluded to. You didn't find out until either was a part of your job, or because someone who was on the S&A committee reached out and kind of told you what it was and got you connected with it. So I say that one because while yes, your all's roles on the committee are here and hearing requests and making some recommendations and decisions about the budget. The other unofficial part of your role is to helping advocate and help other students know what S&A is and that this exists, and also helping to recruit to get people involved and helping to get the voice of the student body out there. So let's jump into the others here. We went over this again when we did our training last month, and so I won't spend much time on the committee charge. As we talked about before, really the charge of this committee, the purpose of you all is to provide recommendations to the CFO and to the Board of Trustees on how the S&A fee money is allocated out and how that's used. Following all the university's guidelines, all the RCWs will talk about. I mean, so there's a little bit of gatekeeper pieces that this committee has, but it really is providing student voice into how your fees are utilized. Again, you all have already gone through this, and you all have actually had the nice opportunity to hear 2 different supplemental requests. And so hopefully you all have learned and realized now in practice kind of the importance of the questions that we ask. And you all did a great job when we had those coming up, asking questions, getting the information you needed. Really, as you can see on here, it's an important aspect that we're going to skip through this and honestly even the next activity because you all already did this. But thinking through what information you need to make a decision, and this specifically comes up when people are asking you all to vote on something or to make a motion, and you all need to deliberate. You really have to think of what information you need to make an informed decision, and what the rest of the committee might need. That's where you'll see Aaron or I will sometimes ask questions, not because we're making the decision or have any vote or say so, but sometimes we're like, regardless of which way you all are going to vote, we know this piece of information is going to be vital to the conversation. And so some of it you learn over time. The other part, as I said this before, is making sure to ask for clarification if information that gets presented doesn't seem to make sense. I can't stress this enough, which is why I waited on that. If it doesn't make sense to you, don't assume it's just you. It's almost never just you. It's usually it didn't make sense to anyone. And so ask to clarify. It also tends to get you more information than what they were intending to share with you as well when they're responding. So this first activity, I'm going to kind of skip over because you all already had a better opportunity to do this. And some of you have already done this activity before. We have 2 others that we are going to do, though, coming up. So as a heads up. This one, for those who haven't done it, is the activity where each of you gets assigned one of these, that you're essentially interviewing someone to either be your roommate, that you're hiring as a babysitter, or that is going to plan your birthday party. But to do the interviews, you're only allowed 1 question to ask to be able to get as much information as you can to make those decisions. Again, we're not going to do that now, but something to keep in mind. Policies and procedures, we've gone over this a little bit, but I'll give a little bit more time on this than what we did in a second. I'll go through the actual guidelines and pull them up for you all because we skipped over some of those pieces last time. For you all as committee members, we're going to talk about the officer positions here at the very end of the training today, and we'll actually vote on those or nominate and vote on those next week at our meeting, but I'm going to cover what those are towards the end. But you all, and we've changed the S&A committee in recent years to where it really is only students as voting members. So it is solely student voice on how your fees are used. and how those S&A funded programs, the feedback that's given to them. And so the expectations are, though, to be present. Again, we have to have quorum. As you all saw from the last 2 meetings, things will come in and there needs to be kind of a timely response. And the way we set things up with requests, it is important that people are here so we can do the business. And so it does have built in terms of the policies that essentially, if any of you as committee members have more than 2 unexcused absences throughout the year, it could lead to us asking you to step aside so someone else can fill in the committee who might be able to be more available. So being present is really important in communicating if things do come up. Also making sure that you're voting on things, because again, you're here to represent the student voice. So it is the expectation for you to kind of participate and to vote on any of those pieces that come up. We'll talk about some pieces, but it is a public meeting. We'll talk about that in a second. Again, not too much because you all have already heard it, but we do provide the ability for public comment. One thing I share with you all as the committee is public comment is open. Any individual from the public can come in and make a comment. The part I always stress here for you all is that the point of public comment is for individuals to share feedback with you all. It does not necessarily, and you'll see this if you watch the Board of Trustees, which is meeting next week. Public comment is not necessarily for you all as the committee to respond back in that moment. It's to receive feedback or to hear the public pieces for you all to consider. Most of the time that's pretty straightforward, but I share this in advance so it doesn't feel pointed when someone's coming in and it's like, yep, Aaron's making a public comment and Aaron asked a question and then I chime in and like, hey, you all don't have to answer that. This is just a comment, not a response. So that is a part of it. As I already mentioned about the voting pieces, you do have to be present to vote. You can't, Nick can't be like, hey, I'm not going to be here, Jake, but can you vote yes or no on this request? You do have to be present to vote. Voting is public. Again, from as a public committee, you all are kind of an extension of the Board of Trustees because you all are making recommendations and decisions about the governance of the S&A fee and the S&A money. So we can't do secret ballot voting type things. It is public. People are aware of that. And again, people can be attendants or can watch the recordings later on. So that is kind of an expectation that comes up. Ideally, we will never have to deal with this. And I say this every year, hoping that it won't be the case, but dispute resolution. We talked about this a little bit. This is really your all's job is to provide recommendations on what we do with funding requests, with base funding, things like that as it relates to the S&A fee. As we talked about the process, your all's recommendation goes up to the senior vice president and CFO. The CFO then sends it to the ELT and then sends it to Board of Trustees if needed. At any of those stages above you all, and we'll just consider them all administration, if at any point the administration disagrees with the recommendation that you all put forward, they have to send that back to you all and say, hey, we disagree with your recommendation to approve this funding request, and here's why. That gives you all the ability to get that rationale, and you all can change your recommendation given the information from administration. Or if we get to a spot where you're like, yep, we hear what you're saying, Joel, and we completely disagree still, we want to move forward, that's where it goes through this process called dispute resolution. So it really is still intended to make sure your voice is strongly heard. It goes through a whole separate piece where we will nominate members to serve on this committee. The Board of Trustees nominates members to serve on this committee who looks at all the sides of the situation and makes a final decision for any of those. And so it doesn't happen often. And this is also why your all's voice is taken with a lot of weight, even though it is a recommendation, because if there were to be disagreement, it can't just be shut down without these added administrative layers on there. So hopefully something we never have to do. And I will keep saying that every year, hoping that it doesn't happen. But it's good for you all to know that it exists. If we get to a point where we want to amend or change the bylaws, it's kind of in there. I'm not going to go into that until we get to that point. This may actually be something we take a look at either later this year to see and do a review of our current guidelines. And if there are changes, we can go through that process. The process involves us sending it up for feedback and review from ASCW's exec board, as well as ELT before it goes up to the Board of Trustees. So there's a lot of oversight and a lot of feedback on our policies as they stand. This we skimmed over in the training, so I am going to give a little bit more on these pieces because this is something you all are going to focus on this year. You all, we'll get the exact numbers next week. Aaron's going to share with you kind of the numbers. It'll also include kind of what we what you all base fund and how much goes into that, but you'll look at it. You all provide, and this is the 3rd year of a quadrennial cycle. So quadrennial means for 4 years. So every 4 years, all of the units who receive S&A money, and we consider base funding saying, you get this amount annually for the next 4 years. And so we have a number of areas like SLICE, like ASCWU, like circuit counting, like the DEC. And again, there's about, I think now that we've shifted things last year, I think there's 38 base funded programs or departments. Every 4 years, they have to come in and re-request. So there's no guarantee that they'll continue getting funding or at what level, but it gives them in those 4 years, they know that they have funding for that process. This is the 3rd year, and so next year's committee is going to have to hear all those requests again as it looks at the 4 years moving up after that. One of the big parts in those in-between years, and this is something you all will be looking at, while you're not reviewing and deciding on new base funding this year, in those off years, your all's job is to essentially be kind of reviewing the base funding units. And we do that through 2 different documents. And we take a look at these during winter and spring quarter. And this is tied into some of our regulations and policy. Every base funded unit is required to submit an annual financial report. We put all these on the website and I'll show you where they are. But it's essentially saying, here's how much money we spent last year in what areas for staffing, for student staffing, for goods and services. Here's how much was left unspent. And there's a few key questions they ask. Those have been required for the last almost 20 years. Almost 20 years of them are on the website if you go back and look through all of them. And those are things you all will look at to review to give you a sense of, are people using the money that was allocated? Are they using it appropriately? Those types of pieces. The other ones that have been implemented specifically starting this quadrennial cycle have also been putting in place program reviews. And so these look at the current year, partway through the year, to ask some questions about what are their mission and goals? What are their key performance indicators? How are they reaching those? We're going to look at these actually coming up in one of our first business meetings after training, the questions, and get some feedback from you all. But this is a key part that's going to happen this year, is you all reviewing our existing base funding units. One, so that way we can give feedback to them to say, hey, this doesn't seem like you're using the funding in the way that it was intended before they come back for base funding, or to give them feedback or guidance, or hey, yep, we think you all are doing great, no concerns type situation. So this is a big part of it that we didn't spend a lot of time on, but this is going to come up here pretty quickly. The annual reports are due December 1st. This year, the program reviews are due December 15th. So that way, when you all come back winter quarter, we're going to start reviewing these and looking at each of the programs kind of spread out throughout the rest of the year. And we can ask them to come in and talk and things like that. But the other part, and I won't go too much on this because you all have experience with this recently, but supplemental funding. This is another part that ties to our base funding units, because what supplemental funding is one-time funding. So all of them have to come in and request, we need X amount of money. Here's why we need X amount of money for the next 4 years. However, supplemental is really intended for those things that come up unexpectedly, that couldn't have been anticipated at the beginning, or they're one-off things that are outside of what the normal budget is. And so they can come and request funding from you all. Those are reserved only for units that receive base funding as a way to further support or supplement those units. But you'll see some of those come in, and they come to you as one-off funding pieces to come out of our reserved funds that we have that, again, Aaron will talk about next week. So you all have already done supplemental funding, so I'm not going to spend much more on that. We are going to do an activity, and this is where I'm going to open it up. And you all have already done deliberation, so I'm not going to explain how deliberation works. but essentially you all are getting proposed to pick for the S&A committee, and some of you have already done this before, but which pet should we get? A dog or a cat? And knowing some of you have already done this, I think I already know where this is going to go, but I'm opening it for deliberation.
Clearly, we should get a cat. I will speak no further.
You're not going to give any justification or reason behind it, Sander.
There's no need. You all know what the right answer is.
Yes, Alice.
Last time I argued cat, so for fun, I'm gonna say dog. And I think that's because they have so much energy. You just, if you ever need a little energy, you just look at the dog and see it run in circles, chasing its own tail, and there you go. That's why we need a dog in the office. It'll keep us all working at tip-top shape.
I like it.
I would say cats because they are, for the most part, self-maintain themselves. And for that reasoning, because they self-maintain themselves. Depending on what cat you get as well and how you train that cat, it can definitely be a very compassionate companion.
See, but I wonder, is the cat just gonna sleep on a tower in the office, or does the cat, like, wouldn't a dog at least greet the people at the door? I mean, my cats, when we open the door, they attack our friends. Like, we don't want the office cat attacking people.
I lied, actually. I will speak further on this. One time in May in the Slice office, we had a cat kind of randomly come in and visit. And you know what? It honestly was the best day of last year. So therefore, office cat is much better than office dog.
I'm going to share because Jared put it in here, so I'm going to assume he may not be able to speak. He put in the comments that Jared seconds the cat. Dogs are little and yappy or big and won't fit in an office space. Plus, we'd have to walk it. Biden's dog got moved out of the White House because it bit over a dozen people too. So dog bad. Although Alice just mentioned about the cats attacking people. So I think there's a little bit of a balance there. I will also throw out, if no one has met, if you haven't seen Campus Police's newest member, Archie, around campus, Archie is amazing and adorable. And is a dog. I guess I didn't say that part. For anyone who doesn't know who Archie is.
I now have a wonderful mental image of a police cat.
I said that when I saw it. I was like, wait, it's a dog. It's a dog. Okay. I appreciate you all humoring with this one. Again, you all have done a good job with deliberation. There's going to be one other one at the end that'll be fascinating to see how you all resolve this, though. So I'm going to keep moving through this for the sake of time. We touched on some of these already at our last training, but the main part, you all don't need to have this memorized, but there are a number of Washington state laws that impact S&A. This isn't just we created this and decided. The state actually has in the governance and the RCWs, it defines across all of the public institutions what S&A fees are, what they can be used for, what they can't be used for, things like that. And in some of those I'll touch on, like specifically, and this is why it's called service and activities fees, is these fees can only be used for student service and activities outside of the classroom and outside of the normal university operation. So there's really specific pieces. There's case laws that go into this, and it's specific for current students. So we can't use S&A fees for prospective students or recruiting new students. Can't use it for alumni or graduated students within that. The laws are also really kind of beneficial because it says in the law that the S&A fee, the use of these fees has to be a majority of student voice and student vote and how these get utilized. And because it really is for you all and how these operate. And so there's a lot of definitions that kind of tie into it and guidelines that we have to fall under. And then the university itself, which I'll touch on in a second, has our own policy and guidelines under this larger umbrella.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So talking about students and the
Mhm.
definition of students, current students.
Yep.
Last year, Slice came to S&A
Mhm.
to ask for funding for cat camp and was denied on the basis that the cat campers were not current students. Why is that?
Yeah. So this is a great question. And I appreciate you asking it, Xander. So, and this actually, our Attorney General's office has had to chime in on this before. So if you ask definition at the university of a student, depending on where you're talking to, that can be defined very differently. For the sake of S&A and as it relates to the RCWs and what's allowable, is a student counts as a student for Central when they are enrolled in courses. So part of the issue with Cat Camp, Xander, as it was previously stated, was some of those students were not enrolled in classes already. When that had come up, and that's how they had presented it. So if a student is enrolled, so if they've signed up and registered for classes, at that point it does count that they are a current student. But this is one of the issues that we've changed how orientation works now. But in the past, it's part of the issues we had is orientation. Previous years was a 2-day orientation. Students wouldn't register for fall classes until the end of the second day. Therefore, everything before that point, for S&A purposes, they didn't count as a student. They counted as a prospective student. So yeah, that was a great question. And we'll touch on a couple other things when I'll show you the website, because like I mentioned, there's the RCWs that are out there. And we have them, and they're on the website if you really wanted to read through all of them. For anyone who doesn't read RCWs on a regular basis like I do, it can be super fun and exciting. But if anyone's looking it up, it's RCW 28B 1545, just for reference. And you can go in and look at the different guidelines and pieces there. We did touch on this, so again, I won't spend too much time because I did this last training, but again, as an extension of the Board of Trustees and the governance of these fees, this committee does operate under the Washington State Open Public Meeting Act, which really means we have to give prior notification. So we post on the website our agendas and pieces in advance so anyone can see them. We also do provide the announcement so people know when and where we are meeting, and it is open for anyone to come in and attend. Within that, we can't have meetings privately, and it's mostly so decisions aren't being made behind the scenes. And as a student, and the same thing as it operates for our ASCWU student government, decisions can't be made behind closed doors. Votes can't be made in secret, those types of things. So it's very transparent on what is happening or what the justification or discussion is. And it's not on this part, but that's also why the public comments are a part of that, because you all will hear requests, you all will deliberate and vote on them, but it also builds in the part of the process so the public, the student body, or the university community can give you all feedback to consider, which is why our process is typically for a public meeting, we will hear a request 1 week, and then we will vote on it the second week. So that way it gives the ability for public to be aware and hear the responses and to comment at the public comment part of our meeting before you all deliberate and vote on it. So that way you're getting the voice of the community as those things come up. Again, parliamentary procedure. We went over this at our previous training. Again, we have the cheat sheet that's in our Teams folder. I also have it pulled up in the background and kind of show you all. But these are the steps that we follow. And this is really intended, one, to ideally keep the meeting organized and operating smoothly so it's clear, but also so that way it's very clearly documented when things are being moved forward and approved or denied, which is why you have to have someone who makes the motion, someone has to second, we have to have a majority vote as those things come up. And so we do follow parliamentary procedure that's within there. We've talked about, you all have already seen the typical flow of a meeting, so I won't go into what that is as we go into it. But I'm going to go into the third activity we have, and I know Jared's going to have to jump off, at least the chatting, so I don't know if he can talk now, but he can time in here. So here's the part I'm giving you all. you all have this mock funding piece. We have $30,000 as S&A committee, and that is all that you have. And you have two requests presented to you. Request one is a request for $25,000 to put in place a one-year pilot program to provide legal consultation and advice to CW students. So not legal representation, the students can go to them, ask questions, get feedback about process, those types of things. So basic legal assistance. Request number two is for $15,000, and it's to put on a large-scale student appreciation and involvement event during winter quarter with an attendance that they're anticipating about 500 to 600 students. So as you all know, this is not normally how we get these requests. Is like, here's all the requests and you know the amount of money in advance. So I'm wanting to say that in advance. But in this scenario, you know we only have $30,000 for the year, and these are the only two requests brought forward. I'm going to open it for you all to chat and discuss them. And Alice, I saw you unmuted for a second, so I'm going to call on you.
I was still trying to grok the requests at that point. Clearly we have a $10,000 difference here, which is sizable, but I notice our second request only targets a specific amount of our student population, whereas request one is putting a pilot program, which implies to me that possibly this is a program which could go on longer, and possibly it sounds like it might serve more than 500 to 600 students. What do y'all think?
Maybe this is short-sighted, but I don't see the need for a pilot program to offer limited legal advice to CWU students, and I think that it would be much more effective to provide a student appreciation event during winter, particularly to increase involvement, because even if it'll only impact maybe 500-600 students, A, it's cheaper, and B, increasing involvement, particularly on our Ellensburg campus, which is where I'm assuming where that is, will have a greater impact for more student-funded opportunity or more base-funded units such as SLICE, the DEC, maybe Circuit Counting, and ASCWU.
I completely agree and see where you're coming from, Xander, but I personally do have a bit of a counterpoint here of that I don't personally believe we'll ever solve our growing retention issue with more involvement fairs. I think the only way we can do that is by serving our student body better with our programs.
Okay. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what the event is then, because when I think student appreciation, I think more the carnival we had last spring and not the involvement fair we had 2 weeks ago. And I think that allowing students, student-led organizations and base-funded units to get a little bit more, I don't want to say in the student's face, but in the student's face, allows for them to start helping our retention issue. And I think a lot of our retention issue, and maybe we're getting on a bit of a tangent here, comes from the lack of those big events that I've heard were so common prior to the pandemic. And I feel like that could, in some ways, alleviate that issue.
I would point out that I was personally at the involvement fair. We were very much in the face of our student body. We had somewhere around 40 signups, of which returned possibly 2.
I was also at the involvement fair, and I totally dig it. I feel the struggle. Trust me, I feel the struggle. But I don't see how the other more expensive option that might serve far fewer students is more effective. And I'd love to hear from some of our other members too. I know, Nick does ACBU, and other, our other members have other hands in different parts of the campus community.
Yeah, so I was just thinking of we have the 30,000 available to allocate to the only two requests here. And so one of my questions with request one is how big of a pilot program is this? And if it's necessary for that pilot program to be that big, and if we're wanting to do both requests and fulfill them to some degree, I would probably suggest a reduction in the size of the pilot program while still being able to do it. I'm just on a smaller scale, so we get both the best of both worlds because these are our only two requests.
Yeah, Jared, I think you had your hand up.
I do. Let me know if you guys can hear me, because
Yep,
so,
we can hear you.
I think that the legal proposal is not very advantageous because we don't know what the need is. We could be funding a program where there's actually no need for legal advice, or we could be underfunding a program that where everybody needs legal advice. We don't have any metrics on utilization there. The involvement fairs, I think, are not a bad concept, but I think how they're done is too diffuse. It generally doesn't have like a targeted goal or like something to tie the entire thing together to then go to a next activity step. They're all just kind of like, let's get together and like, here are some clubs if you want to participate, and therefore the retention, as Xander and Alice have said, is quite low. You can have interactions with people, but if there's no impetus as an organization from CU to follow through there, I feel like that's also wasted money. So given the choice and being forced to choose between the two, I would approve the involvement fair with the suggestion that they try and have a follow-up or some kind of like an organized way to have students engage with the clubs and activities that they're interested in a way that reminds them to then come to the club meetings, or we have something where we tie into Canvas or something more than what we've been doing, which is not very effective.
Thanks, Jared.
I think that I really like Nick's idea of approving both of these. I know I was very staunchly against the legal thing just a minute ago, but thinking about approving both of them in a much smaller degree would be effective. I think that like definitely providing the idea for a legal pilot program with probably half the funding of what they're asking now, and then funding the involvement fair at probably 2/3 of what they're funding now. So that's looking at 12,500 and math 10,000. Wait, I only puts us at 22. Don't listen to me. Someone else talk, please.
I get the idea. We'll ignore the math part you were doing, Xander, but the rough idea of both. Jake, I think you had your hand up. Oh, I can't hear you. It says you're unmuted, though. Not yet. I see your mouth moving. We'll give Jake a sec.
We don't hear you still. I see your lips moving.
Hello?
Oh,
Okay,
Oh,
there we go.
we can hear you. Yep, we got you now.
Confused
ahead,
on why
Jake.
can you still hear me? Yes,
Yep,
no?
yep,
Okay.
yep.
Confused on why the headset was unmuted but muted. I think given the two requests and that we had to approve one and we wouldn't be able to ask any more questions about how it's properly allocated, because I see request two and I don't know, like Xander brought up a good point. If he thinks it's more like the carnival, then I can see a point to approve that. But if it's more like our involvement fairs where we only get 40 people signing up, then it's kind of hard. So it kind of depends on what event they're actually thinking of, and I feel like that's good to include. Whereas I can see request number two is that there's a lot more info there, and I mean the only thing we're missing there is statistics, which from my opinion, I know that at least 50 people that are seeking legal advice on campus, and that would be really helpful to them. So I can already see at least that many people, and that's just people that I know. So in my opinion, I'd have to side with Alice and approve request number one.
I would like to follow that up, and I do see some of our programs having many holes in what they provide our student body, and I do think legal advice is one of those. Not necessarily very, very specific legal advice, but generalized legal advice, like how to handle putting in your 2 weeks at your job, how to handle writing a resignation letter in a way that doesn't sound like opinionated, or how to handle an acceptance letter. These are legal situations, in my opinion.
I feel a lot of those things, putting in your 2 weeks at your job or handling acceptance letters, I feel like that falls under career services. So I wonder if the way to handle this would be to provide more funding or like direct these people to partner with career services, if that's like the main focus.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
I like
But I do think our career services are very subpar.
I do like the thought of utilizing or where there might be duplication though and coming up in there. So, well, the beneficial part of this is one, if this were real requests, Jake, as you kind of pointed out, you all would be able to ask way more questions and delve into it. And I appreciate, because I could tell you all were already thinking of and knowing what questions you wanted to ask within these. And the second part is, fortunately, you all don't have to allocate this out. Really what I want to get across the point, and you all touched on every scenario that I was hoping you would, is the questions where you may not have all the information. Also looking at alternative options. I really appreciated and was hoping someone was going to throw out and at least bring up, like Nick did. And then you saw Xander's kind of thought process change on it doesn't have to be the full amount. You all can look at and consider, you have X amount of money. What is the best and most effective use for the student body? And you all were looking at as well, like, what is going to impact and benefit the most students? What are those pieces? And so you all did all the things I was hoping you would do on this activity. So I'm going to, because I know we're short on time here, but I feel like we could probably spend a half hour debating this. And I can tell you, I could give you way more information because these are actually based on 2 real requests. And the dollar figures are much higher than what these were when these came forward. So we can share those for another activity time in the future. With that, I do want to just briefly touch on a couple of these things. Again, the website, while the website is in flux, our S&A website is live. It does have all of our documents on it. It has our guidelines and policies, the annual reports. I'm gonna briefly stop sharing this to show you the website really quick. And then the last part we have on here is really just talking about the positions for next week. So let me stop sharing this. And I'm gonna pull up and just walk you all through the website because it has changed. And this is if I can do multiple things at one time on my screen. Let me share my screen. Okay. So you all should be able to see it. Can you see the website and the marching band there? Okay. So if you go here, and you don't have to type in the massive long screen name, but if you just search CWU and S&A or service activities, it takes you to our main page. The reason I want to show you all this is this page does have on here, has the links to our Thursday meetings, has a quick link that goes directly to our meeting minutes and agendas for anyone coming to watch them. Also, watching our previous meetings takes you to our YouTube channel. For those who haven't seen that, it does have all of our previous meetings recorded on it if you want to go back and watch. The quick parts for you all, though, is going to be the forms and resources and financial and funding reports. Forms and resources, if you click on it, this is where you can go back and take a look on the side. You'll see the agendas and minutes, and you can go to that, and it's by year. Obviously, this year, we don't have all of them on here. I mean, we have the ones we've done, but it's early on. You can go back to last year and see all of the agendas and minutes back for, as you can see, many, many years. So we have those resources on there. Go back to this. This also talks about the annual reports. This is where the groups can go to the annual report form. This is where they can submit supplemental funding reports as well when they come into this. If you go under forms and resources, it's also where our guidelines and procedures are. So the parts I talked about earlier in the training, here's the university's policy, which actually won't work right now because none of the policies and procedures are live, but I do have it. I could send to any one of you. CWP 840, it's actually right here, as you can see on the screen. This is our full policy. It does have a link to our spending your S&A allocation for those units when they get funding. The Killian outline is actually based on the RCWs as well as a lot of case law that's gone up about S&A fees and lawsuits. So this is a really helpful document for our base funded units and areas, but also for you all. We use this quite frequently to look at, is this an allowable thing we can fund or not? And then the link to themselves to the RCWs that I was talking about, if you again want to go read them. The other one, as you look at it, as we wrap up here, is a financial and funding reports. These are the ones we're going to look at for our year. But you can go in and look in here. The annual financial reports, again, going back all these years, these are the ones that are due December 1st. And so you all are going to see these. The program reviews are the ones coming up December 15th, and you can take a look at the previous ones. Before this funding cycle, they used to not submit written program reviews. They would come in and do a presentation, and those were spread out over the course of 4 years. And so you can watch those on the videos, but you won't see an actual report. But you can also see our allocation reports for base funding, the legislative reports that our funds manager, Aaron, gets to do and to get those out there. A whole host of a massive, massive amount of information is on the website. Is probably the quickest way to know that. And then my very last thing for you all, and this is just to put it in your heads ahead of next week. Next week, we are going to ask you all to kind of nominate. You can nominate yourself. You can nominate another member. We do have 3 positions on the committee. There's the chair, the vice chair, and the parliamentarian. And as it shows on here, the chair really presides over the S&A meetings. As you all have seen the last couple of meetings, I've kind of been doing that. That is not what my role normally is. I'm here more in the background as the advisor. But what I've done the last few meetings of going through the agenda, calling on people, they really serve as a spokesperson for the committee as needed. Also, one of the key things is the chair also typically won't vote unless there's a tie. And so they don't give their vote at those pieces, but they will if there's a tie amongst the rest of you. They are the tiebreaker in those scenarios. The vice chair really serves as the backup to the chair. So if the chair is not present, the vice chair steps in and runs the meetings, serves as the spokesperson as needed. Again, the chair of the S&A committee, one of their roles as spokesperson is they do serve on the CERC governance, and so attend those quarterly meetings. If they're not able to, the vice chair, again, steps in. The vice chair also, if we call any subcommittees, if you all decide we want a subcommittee to look into the guidelines or a subcommittee to look into, I'll just pick on Jared from a couple weeks ago on the CERC space allocation and want to delve into that more outside of this, the vice chair presides over those subcommittees and helps kind of guide those. And then the parliamentarian, if both the chair and vice chair are absent, the parliamentarian runs the meeting and presides over that. But they also help the chair and myself as the advisor to ensure we're following proper parliamentary procedure. So putting this on people's minds going into next week, but after Erin goes through and does her training, we will open it up to the election and the nomination of officers. So with that, though, that is the extent of the training portion of our meeting. Did anyone have any questions, though, on anything? I know I went through that pretty quickly, but also I know all of you have kind of done this either last year or even the last 2 kind of summer meetings. Any questions on anything we went over? Thanks, Jared. Jared said, nope, all good. Obviously, this isn't a one-time thing. You all hopefully know you can ask questions anytime. Please always chime in. Going back to the part when we're asking questions of presenters, if you don't know or are confused or have a question, it helps the rest of the committee too. So always just chime in with those. But seeing none right now, I'm going to go ahead and move on. We don't have old business, and so I'll open up to public comment second call. Any other public comment? I don't see it. I did realize there's one other communication received that I forgot, but you all have it. But I guess for the sake of the public piece, just as a heads up and reminder, I sent an email out to you all as the committee because you all did get invited to next week with the Board of Trustees to have lunch for those of you who are available on that. And so I know a couple of you were able to attend and send that on. I don't know, you should be expecting to get a calendar invite from Dania Cochran if you haven't already. So I see Alice saying yes, so I'm assuming it's already gone out. So one, thank you all. Also, definitely enjoy that and take advantage of that. You'll be joining, and I know there's a number of our exec board who are attending, several of our student senators, and a couple other student leader areas with ESC and others. So there won't be a massive group, but there'll be a good number of you all student leaders joining the Board of Trustees next week. And so I did forget to mention that publicly within here. So otherwise, if there are no other comments, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn this fine meeting on October 12th.
Motion
like to
from
second.
Alice, second from Xander. Is there any opposition to adjourning the meeting?
I would like to oppose myself.
Being none, we'll consider the meeting adjourned at 6:08 p.m. Thank you all so much, and we will see you all next Thursday. Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.